right. Well, time's passed since this first broadcast of the Star Beast in November, and we hadn't even broadcast then. The Sensory is that young. We were just an idea. We started with a giggle. So basically, we wanted a chance to actually put our stamp on this, to actually give our version. And I think the beauty of it is time has passed. We've all had time to settle things, get over things, and come at it with a fresh angle. So basically, let's go back. The big recovery, the big relaunch, the big comeback with RTD as our media guru, Titan, to actually save the series. And the Star Beast, based on a comic strip, was going to be our result. So if you have seen us with The Giggle, and I'll just remind you, it's still there. That was our first ever program, The Giggle. Our review of that, we had a different slant. We give it an inspection report. I'll take you through them in a moment. And obviously, we did the same with The Church on Ruby Road. Still out there on YouTube. Take a look. And our panelists will judge on certain criteria. We'll take you through them. But first of all, I need to bring people on. So hello, Michelle. I always kind of fail to shrink myself.
Hello.
There you go. Hi, Michelle. Good to see you back.
Hi.
We missed you on Sunday.
Glad to be back.
And hello, John.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Brendan. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, John.
Hello, Noel. Oh, we've got a silent.
You're muted.
We've got a silent Noel. And Timescales. Hello again.
Hi, guys.
Timescales. He would not allow me. He wouldn't let me do this show without him being on, because he loves talking about this one, don't you, Timescales?
Oh. Yeah, I don't remember telling you that. I love the Star Beast episode. It's great.
Now, did you pull up and just push the kids out of the car? Did you pull up by kids and just push them out? Or did you slow down?
It was like one of those postal trucks. So can I just say, first things first, yes, we're going to review the Star Beast and we're going to give it our inspection of it, but I think it's important to start in the right way. We all know Hugh. Hugh is one of our original panelists, and he did our Sunday show, and he took ill afterwards. And all I want to say is, on behalf of us, all of us, and you in the margins there, I call you the margins. Crimpling said, stick with saying the margins, not the thread. In our margin of the matrix, we all wish him well, and we all do miss him, and we all do see him as a friend now. He has some great contributions, and he's a decent bloke. So, speedy recovery, please, for you, Hugh. Hope you're going to be all right. John, he's your mate, isn't he?
Yes. It came as a little surprise to us, but he's Glaswegian. He's made of stern stuff. He'll bounce back.
Yeah. So, Hugh, we're dying to see you again, but take your time and get back to health. And we really do miss you. Okay, so the Star Beast. I mean, yes, we haven't gone into a time zone or anything. It's just, like I said, our show had never delivered at that point. So this is going to be our version of what we think of the Star Beast. Now, for those who have not seen our reviews, we do have a specific way of doing things. And I'll just show you for a second. I won't drag it out, but this is basically what we do. So basically, our panel assemble, which we have, and we measure every show on three criteria, and there's 4 ratings. You can see we'll give it an outstanding, or a good overall, or it needs improvement as a program, or it needs to be in special measures. And that is going to be our strict philosophy today. We are not going to take any nonsense. We judge it on those criteria. We also, those are the judgments. The first criteria, just if you want to join the game, is the safeguarding of the program, the safeguarding of canon, the safeguard. For example, is this the Doctor Who you're seeing following on from all the other Doctor Who's, or has it changed the program or the formula or the vibe, or changed the character? If somebody's character completely changes, then I think it's not safeguarding the program. So you would judge it down. A second criteria, I'll just do it quickly. We bundle in visual effects, direction, music, the set design, all that. Use of resources, I'll call it. And the last one is Did it engage you? Did it interest you? Was it good drama? So we're going to judge it on those 3 criteria, and I'm going to be kind of keeping on that. Now, to start the program off, having seen the Star Beast again, we normally do start with what bothered you the most. So I'm going to cue my titles on burning issues. Yes, burning issues. And that's anything you did find contentious or problematic, even if you're going to give it an outstanding. So, Michelle, straight away, just one from you. Was there any contentious issue you would like to raise now on the Star Beast?
Oh my God, the you're a woman, you won't understand part. Oh my God.
I thought you'd like that.
Let me give you my eyebrow. No, oh my gosh. He's just been a woman 30 minutes ago. Of course he's going to understand what it's like to be a woman.
Well, yeah, even I think the psychic paper had said mistress to the taxi.
Yeah, and that was funny how it even hadn't caught up yet. He's slapping it on the, come on, catch up. And then you were never a woman. You're not a woman. You wouldn't understand.
Okay, now I've got that item in our Dialogue Doctors. For those of you who've never watched us do a review before, we do look at some of the script. It's down there. So, Michelle, I'm not going to bypass it. We can engage with that there. But yeah, John, have you got any bones of contention?
One or 6, yes. But the chief one in a burning issue would be the total disassembling of the whole Donna Noble arc, which would have been acceptable had it been done better and done to a better purpose. But what was effectively one of the most touching, moving, and genuinely tear-inducing finales in Doctor Who was blown by this. And I'd mentioned this in a previous stream that even though, if you choose to ignore the Star Beast, you can go back and watch that in the Donna's departure, the Journey's End, and it's never the same again because you know what they've done to it. So I don't mind tinkering with it if it's to good effect and it improves upon it, but they trashed it, and they trashed it for a whole lot of other issues which weren't to do with good story and good storytelling.
And that's one I'm going to raise in a minute. But I'm over to you, Timescales. And did you have any bones of contention with this?
Well, I wouldn't say contention, but there was some. I was let down by part of it, and it's the same thing that Michelle mentioned. And I don't really know how to put it in words because I don't understand why that content was in the program. And the first time viewing it, I watched it with a large amount of family members down in Texas who had never seen Doctor Who. And everybody really enjoyed the program. We were laughing and just having a great time. And it was thrilling for me to be able to introduce some of my family members to Doctor Who, since I have loved Doctor Who the majority of my life. And when that section came on and they started that dialogue, I didn't understand why that was in Doctor Who. I was actually confused by it, and I remember thinking, "Oh God, what is that? Why?" So anyway, over the period of the weekend, we ended up watching the episode at least 2 or 3 more times, and I actually skipped past that area because I to this day don't understand why that sort of dialogue was in Doctor Who. Maybe I just don't understand what the point was. But it did confuse me. And when I hear the word contention, that's pretty much the closest that I can come to having criticism of the episode.
Well, thanks for that. As I said, a lot of these will be explored later, obviously, as we go through the program. Now, Noel, are you back with us? Have you got... Now, I know what you said when you joined us, and you said that you'd been engaged by watching it again, hadn't you? So... have you got one? You're only allowed one at the moment. Have you got one bone of contention, Noel?
Right. First of all, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Right. I'm having technical issues here. I'm trying to get the camera to work, but for some weird reason, it's not working. But I missed what the timescales said there. But for me, a moment of detention would probably be the pronouns scene with Beat the Meep. Has no I'm going to be honest here. Gender ideology has no business in Doctor Who. It's a sci-fi show, and get into a little bit because I wanted to come in just recently, watch the show. Literally, I switched off when I came in here backstage, and I'm still angry. Actually, it actually brought some anger out of me today. It's not good on second viewing. It's a lot of flash bangs, and it looks great, but when you dig down, scratch the surface, it's actually all superficial.
Yeah. Now, Noel, we really will go into that section because, as I said to Michelle, in my dialogue doctors, we look at some of the script, so you can save that a little bit, and it'll be cool. So, okay. So we start with the Star Beast. We've all got a few bones of contention. I wonder if there is actually a Doctor Who episode out there that actually exists without any bones of contention. But you know, we've called some of them out. I normally in our reviews ask you where you stand on the whole episode, but I think we can save that to the ending. Just get straight into it. Just before we do leave bones of contention, though, mine were, and I've saved the pronouns and all that stuff for later, but mine were actually, in the end, ultimately lazy writing. I do really like Russell T Davies, but I thought the writing was problematic. It was based on a comic strip, which timescales can help me with soon. But the comic strip itself, I thought the whole story in Star Beast on TV, I counted it. The show was over after 48 minutes or something like that. And we had another 10 minutes after that to deal with stuff. At the exposition at the beginning, and I didn't know if there was much of a story actually, and then add to that things that we all found problematic with pronouns and stuff, and I just thought this was lazy writing. Was this a sci-fi show? So that was one of my main ones, and the other one Crimpline mentioned, so I'm just going to ask everybody's opinion on this now while we're at it, because I'll just bring Crimpline in here. The sonic screwdriver as a magic wand. Couldn't it have altered the atomic structure of some bath towels Sylvia just washed so that we can see? I must admit that the whole sonic screwdriver thing I've mentioned in one of our other shows, but it's turned into a Harry Potter wand. But based on this episode, what did you think of that timescale?
I'm sorry, Brendan. I was actually I've got a cat that's on the table here, which I'm going to have to go take care of. There was a little bit of an audio issue, and I didn't quite catch.
No, mute yourself for the moment.
So all I'll say, timescales is, in the episode, the sonic screwdriver, it could resonate cement. It could create a nice graphic in front of the Doctor. It could create force fields. It could call the Wrath Warriors to a car park. Wow, it's been upgraded, but I find that lazy writing. I found that a problem. Crimpline did. What did you think?
Well, I hadn't really thought of that, but I do remember the scene with it going through the concrete, because I thought that was actually a brick wall, and so I had told my wife when we were watching it that, oh, there's an error in there. That's not concrete. But I looked later and it actually was, so I was wrong. But as far as the sonic being overused, I did not detect that while we were watching the episode. But now that you mention it, the sonic is not something that the Doctor should be able to fall back on as often as what you're mentioning, because it kind of removes the fear factor of something. You know, imagine if the Doctor was for some reason stuck inside of the TARDIS, banging on the door, and he can't get out because the sonic is outside. You know, the sonic can definitely be overused. And I did not realize that until you mentioned it, but you are correct. It probably shouldn't have been used that much.
It's to give it. It's given a hint, John, of where I'm going to go on safeguarding of canon, because it's just changed it too much. And as Archibald Lazarus says, in Patrick Troughton's ear, it just undid screws, John.
That's why it was called the sonic screwdriver. It undid screws, and that's all it did. Yeah, it's lazy writing, but that's probably a problem of the format now, the Doctor Who 50 minutes, 60-minute episodes. You've got to race to the next, every few minutes you've got to have a piece of action, a piece of bangs and flashes going on. So they've got to keep the story moving and getting on. So you don't get that leisurely introduction to the Doctor of him getting to know the ancillary characters like you used to. So we have the psychic paper now. But the sonic screwdriver is probably the worst offender in this. And even back in the old days, Jonathan Turner recognised it as such and got rid of it. But nowadays it's become, the sonic screwdriver nowadays can do everything until it can't do everything. If the writing was lazy, then I think Russell Davies is going to become a victim of that later on, because if the Doctor can just create a shield from bullets or laser bolts or whatever it is by queuing up the sonic, it lessens any jeopardy we might get in getting future episodes. And if the Doctor doesn't do it, we're going to be saying, well, why didn't he do it? Because we've already established that that's what the sonic screwdriver does. So yeah, I understand modern television has to move on, it has to be fast, has to keep things moving. But I thought Crimpling Doubloon was excellent in his comments there. It would have been so much more in keeping with Doctor Who for the Doctor to have zizzed up Sylvia's towels and made them stiff as a board and used them as a shield to pass. That's an excellent idea, and so Doctor Who.
Yeah, it is true. It's very Doctor Who. Michelle?
Yeah, I agree. The sonic screwdriver is being way overused, and now it's turning into the Harry Potter wand. I mean, even just during the John Nathan Turner era, they had it destroyed, and the Doctor always forgot to rebuild it. Even in the first Sontaran episode, the Doctor didn't use the sonic screwdriver. And you don't miss it. But I think it is a key of modern day writing where everything is so compressed. We have to go from beat to beat to beat to beat so fast, and because modern day audiences have the attention span of a goldfish, or in fact, actually, I think goldfish beat out attention span right now in the latest poll. So yeah, just again, it's an indicative of problems of modern writing,
and also because this thing has merchandise value. So
yes, I bought the screwdriver. I think
if it hadn't existed, they would have existed. They would have invented it, and now they've invented it. In order to move the thing as an item of merchandise, it has to be on screen quite a lot.
Yeah.
So,
and that was one of the few things that they had for merchandise for the 60th anniversary, which was shocking. They didn't do a Beep the Meat figure, which should have been all on shelves. So really, all they had was this the screwdriver. And I'm a hypocrite. I bought it. I think it's a gorgeous piece of artwork. But again, at the same time, they're overusing it.
Well, exactly. That's the point. And Noel, you've been a football fan. You get this as well. You know when they change the football shirts every 5 minutes just to make money out of fans, mugging fans. And the sonic screwdriver has now been changed every 5 minutes. I know. The 15th Doctor's sonic screwdriver, as you know, looks completely different. So they've changed it. Yeah. So the whole point
is changing it again. Those were rumors saying he's going to have another Sonic in the next season after this one.
And this is it, Noel, isn't it? They're trying to just do it like football fans. They're just screwing us over. And actually, I understand what all the panel have said about, the upbeat and fast-paced rhythm of TV drama now. But that's not Doctor Who. And I warn everybody watching this, my safeguarding view of this estimation of this program is quite low because it's breaking a lot of the rules that keep Doctor Who together. Noel, what do you think?
I think the sonic screwdriver is a device in modern Who to cover over lazy writing. That's basically it. Season 1, if you look at season 1, Christopher Eccleston, the sonic screwdriver was used in the proper manner, I believe. You just have to, I've recently watched season 1 again, and the screwdriver, it's not actually used that often, and Christopher Eccleston and the writers let the actors do all the work basically. But since Stephen Moffat, because Stephen Moffat kind of started using the screwdriver for silly little things, it's kind of carried on, and Chibs then did the same. Jodie Whittaker took the screwdriver out every 5 bloody seconds, for God's sake. She couldn't do that without the sonic screwdriver or other people doing everything for her, and then she bundles in right at the last minute and saves the day. But look, I like the sonic screwdriver. I have a few of them myself. I don't have them all. I'm like Michelle. I have a soft spot for it. If used properly, the sonic screwdriver is another tool in the Doctor's arsenal of defeating the bad guys, and I don't mind that. The problem is that you're using it way too often now. Now his screwdriver doesn't look like a screwdriver shooties, and if Michelle is right, and they've changed it because they've made a blunder over the design, because I reckon that would be the reason for changing it. If that's a blunder, well then why did you turn it into a remote control in the first place? A TV controller. You know what I mean? Made no sense. It's a screwdriver. Keep it as a screwdriver. I mean, we had Jodie Whittaker's. I have to be careful what I say on YouTube, but it didn't look like a screwdriver. Let's just be honest. It looked like an instrument, if you know what I mean. But look, we'll see what happens. I mean, the 60 that look when David Tennant start building force fields or whatever it was he built with I was like, and then he has the computer screen now, was able to project this computer screen and all this rubbish. I was like, what you doing? And this is the thing. Already that tells me that RTD is gonna rely on this device a lot, because he's gonna be covering up for all the bad stuff that he does.
Well,
and
this
Modern Who, that's the problem. Fast paced is the problem with Modern Who.
Well, this is
Doctor
one thing.
Who's not a fast paced show. It never looked at Classic Who. There are some stories that are, but in general, they're not. They're there to tell stories each week. It's different nowadays, modern television. But go on.
Sorry, Noel. This is one thing we can raise in our first area of attack in our review, which is the safeguarding of the program. So I just wanted to kind of get us to that point, because it's a big area where you discuss the whole episode in safeguarding. So I might as well take us there. So just to keep the audience aware, if you've not seen our reviews of the Giggle or Church and Ruby Road, this is our first inspection criteria of 3 in judging the episode and being as fair as possible with proper objective criteria. In your estimations, panelists and thread, in the safeguarding of the program, was that Doctor Who the Doctor Who you recognise? In the shape and feel of the program, is that the program you recognise, or has it been broken? Does it follow the usual formula? The use of sonic screwdriver is a tiny part of that. Blah blah blah. But so I'm asking you for an estimation. I'll ask you at the end whether that's kind of coloured your view overall. But first of all, John, since you know the score and how we do this, how has the safeguarding of the program looked in the Star Beast to you?
You know, it's difficult to do this because I'm not a slave to canon, or never have been. I'm not slavish about everything adhering to everything that happened before. That way it gets you into 1980s territory, and the program ends up getting cancelled. Nothing should enter in the way of a good story. And that's it, just good story. We should always take cognizance of what Doctor Who is and the type of program that it is, the type of character that the Doctor Who is, and the role of the companion within that. I'm not suggesting that we ever neglect what that is. But there is always scope for the program to change, to mould, to evolve as it goes along, but within certain parameters. Doctor Who is a much faster paced program now. It's a much more modern program in terms of its approach to characterization, in that in many respects, and we've discussed this before, the companion now is seen as the figure who assumes a lot more importance sometimes as the Doctor. He's an outsider often in his or her own show. And that's happened even in Classic Who. It happened with Colin Baker's Doctor when Eric Saywood was writing for him. But the Star Beast, particularly, my major problem with it was it's almost as if the writer, Russell Davies, had decided there's a good story. It's well known in fan lore. I'm not a great comic strip person. I've bought the magazine since day one. But I remember the Star Beast. I remember being excellent. So he knew it was a cast iron bank of a story. And around that, he was able to put in a whole lot of other things that he saw fit to do. And perhaps this is the worrying thing why he chose to come back to the programme, because within minutes of this thing arriving, we're being lectured to about gender identity and stuff like that. And I want to state clearly, just so everybody knows, I have zero problems with the trans community, zero problems at all. But there are places for that issue to be discussed. And is that at 6 o'clock or so on a Saturday night in a programme for the family? Probably not. Definitely not. And when you're contriving a programme and you're contriving the story, or stealing a story actually, just so you can concentrate perhaps on additional things, which happens to be the gender ideology, bigging up or introducing sexism, but from the other perspective, then I think Doctor Who suffers as a result. The Doctor was dissed in his own programme here, and he's made to look like a fool towards the end. And in order to reinvigorate the character after a very poor era, I don't think that's a very sensible thing to do. And it proves the writer's taken his eye off the ball and is more interested in the overall message of why he's returned to the show than he is about, and it needed saving after the Chibnall era, saving Doctor Who by allowing us all to invest in the character, particularly when it's a character that David Tennant created who was bankable. So, no, is the answer. The canon was not safe in the hands of the Star Beast.
And this is where timescales, we have our different viewpoints of what we mean by safeguarding. I mentioned canon as an example, but as John says, in his mind, that's not an issue. And let's face it, if I judged it like that, Deadly Assassin would fail. So I understand. It's just are the characters consistent? Blah blah blah. So in your case, timescales, I'm really interested in your contribution regarding the comic strip and whether Beep the Meep went onto screen accurately and consistently. Did you recognize the plot? Did RTD stay true to that story, or did, as John was saying, he added other things on, so it was sabotaged for message? How did you feel about how comic strip was translated onto screen? Was that consistent?
Well, first of all, the comic strips are very short, so there's not really a whole lot of content to go on there. Back when my brother and I took over the timescales, it did not have any comics or magazines on it in the catalog for people to be able to write reviews. So what I had to do was go through and add every single comic that exists of Doctor Who. And in doing so, I accidentally ordered way too many comics, because as I was going through and updating the catalog, I would see something that looked extremely interesting. And then the next thing I know, I'm on eBay ordering that and then ending up with piles of comics. But with the Star Beast in particular, the stories are very short. So it seems as if it's open for creativity on the screen. I think that pretty much anything could have been done with the Star Beast. So I can't really say that there's a consistency with the comics and what we saw on TV, because there was so little of the comics. Now, when I saw that, when the titles were announced for the upcoming specials, and I saw that one was the Star Beast, I was immediately excited about that, because what a wonderful idea to make a Doctor Who episode based on a comic. And it made me think that perhaps this will be more common. Maybe they will take some of the more of the comic stories from the past, some of which are absolutely wonderful, and turn those into television episodes. So as far as the Star Beast coming from a comic, I was very excited about that. I'm still excited about it. And as far as keeping the program safe, I think that the simple fact that David Tennant and Catherine Tate were hired to come back, it certainly wasn't cheap for the BBC or Bad Wolf or whoever's making Doctor Who. Certainly wasn't cheap to bring those actors back. To me, that is an obvious effort right there to safeguard the program, to do something that unexpected, and to bring two loved actors back to the screen. So that to me shows an obvious attempt in trying to keep the program safe.
When I watched it again just today, I thought the Catherine Tate return was stellar. And on the safeguarding of the program, her character was consistent. Yes, they used the binary thing for something that we'll mention in the Dialogue Doctors in detail. But I thought her humor, her character brings a lot of nice levity and humor to the program and a nice dynamism. The David Tennant new Doctor, because he wasn't the same as the 10th Doctor, was he? Was a problem, and he can't break canon in one way because he's a brand new Doctor. We didn't have any Doctor having a problem after regeneration, which is normally the score nowadays. He suddenly adapted to this new form very quickly and just got on with the adventure. Maybe we should do that more in future and not have the Doctor having a problem for an episode or two. Mm-hmm. So it breaks canon there, if you could argue, in another way. So those things didn't bother me. What bothered me was the Doctor, a male presenting Doctor, female presenting Doctor. Again, it's another thing we'll mention in Dialogue Doctors. All that stuff just suddenly weakened the whole idea of the Doctor being the hero and the one with the answers and the ones who save the universe. Suddenly, no, you're a lesser person. And I hated that. And I just thought, you're changing the program. You are really challenging the core of the program. Michelle, you're nodding your head.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're dissing the hero in the show is named after. He's being dissed in his own show.
Now, Noel, I'm sure there's one more bone of contention with you, but on the safeguarding of canon, I've mentioned the Doctor's characterization. I know it was a new incarnation, but actually that wasn't the Doctor I recognized being put in his place and told off and all the rest of it. Did you find that this was Doctor Who that you recognized? Did you find... No, yes, it's a modern Doctor Who version. Yes, things get faster, but I can see Doctor Who there and it's safe in RTD's hands.
Look, I understand that Doctor Who kind of has to move with the times, and showrunner is going to do things that we're not always going to agree on. I do agree with timescales when he says, you know, is there a genuine effort to safeguard the show? I think bringing David Tennant and Catherine Tate back did show that. But where I disagree is getting those actors back that you said. He brought them back for one simple reason. And the reason why he brought them back was because of the last 5-6 years we had under Chris Chibnall. And he thought if we brought familiar faces back, the most popular Doctor of the New Who era and the most popular companion of the New Who era, we might be able to get this show off life support and get it moving again. Did it work out exactly the way he wanted? Probably not. I have to be honest, I have to say what he's produced so far is bang average in my opinion. I didn't like the dynamic between the Doctor and Donna. I didn't like the way the Doctor was put in his place. And we'll get into the whole pronoun nonsense in a minute, but that scene in particular just did me wick because, you know, to give out to the Doctor for everything that he's done over a simple thing like pronouns just seemed like a waste of time to me. But I will say this, is he trying to safeguard the show? I would say he's trying, but right now he has a lot of work to do to convince me and others out there that he has good intentions for Doctor Who. If you look at the Davros Gate stuff, for example, it doesn't really show me that he's safeguarding certain characters because he finds them problematic. And that's where I have issue with him going forward and where I have the worries going forward with the Shooties era. What more is he going to do? What more is he going to find problematic? And if you start deconstructing Doctor Who, you're going to lose an audience that you've already lost. You've lost an audience already under Chib's regime. His job was to come back. like RTD's return, you all remember how I was even excited. I thought, oh my God, RTD is coming back to Doctor Who. Doctor Who is saved. That's what I said at the time. Do I have that opinion now after what he's produced? No. I am very worried.
There's a lot of
Chance,
a lot of
because I gave
there's a lot of
Chibs
people.
a chance, and I'll give him a chance because he has previous on the show, and he has written
Yeah.
stuff that I've enjoyed. So you'll get the benefit of the doubt for now. But this new series, he has to hit the ground running. There is no room for complacency.
Well, in the margins, I'll keep calling it now. Archibald Lazarus. What about the safeguarding of the children viewers? The Star Beast was a grooming exercise. Gender confused youngsters will think they can change sex with drugs and surgery. I've compartmentalized a lot of that, Archibald, into our dialogue doctors, where the panel can actually really look at that in detail. But I take your point. We've got Michael Nemo. Something that drives me crazy about Who now is there's always music playing. Murray never shuts up. I suspect it's to be spoon-fed tone and mood, which newer viewers can't deduce this on their own. I could see Michelle was pointing to agree with that. I actually thought it was quite toned down in Star Beast, believe it or not. But and then Crimpling has thanked you all for rewatching this episode in order to review it. I doubt I'll ever watch it again, and that's not a sign of success. And I have to say, when I watched it again today, I did think, I don't know what you think, John, but I did think, because of all the messaging and stuff going on, and there wasn't much of a story, I don't know if I really would watch this again. It's not got impact.
Yeah, I had to watch it in two sections. I honestly couldn't last an hour with it. I actually got a bit bored during it because there wasn't much story there, and I felt throughout that it was very loosely put together. As it was the bare bones of a plot
Yeah.
that was designed, as I've already outlined, in order for them to reintroduce Tennant Tate, get the message across, and introduce the new TARDIS at the end. There was enough for it, and it was fast moving because there was a lot of stomping, a lot of firing of weapons, a lot of bangs and flashes, but it still managed to be quite boring in places. You know, it's in terms of the gender thing. If I just might speak about that again, my major issue with that is not the actor. The actor, good luck to him or her. I wish them well. I don't think they're a particularly good actor. But in the story, we're being made to believe that Donna's son, now daughter, is 15.
Mm.
Now, last time I looked, that's not age. No, that is the age of consent, the age of majority, the age of emancipation in the United Kingdom. So I don't know why deliberately that was chosen. They may well have made the character adopted and made them older to avoid that. But the problem I have with that is because at the same time, Russell Davies will talk about having issues with Davros being in a chair, although it's more of a life support system, a chair, and change that.
Yeah.
We expected not to have a problem with a 15-year-old being able to present, who knows, with whatever medical or other interventions involved, being able to present as a female. And I think that sends out a message which isn't or shouldn't be there in Doctor Who. Sorry to come back to that. I just think that needs to be said.
No, I mean, I try and structure it, but equally things bleed into each other, don't they, all the time?
Well, John is absolutely spot on. Nobody has it. See, nobody has an. This is a family show. It's on at 6 o'clock, right? Now, if you're presenting a character that's supposed to be 15 and is identifying as the other gender, then you're telling it's telling kid, and that's the issue that we have.
Mm-hmm.
We already know in society that there is a pushback on this because of the whole children issue. So why RTD would want to include that in our show, a sci-fi show, remember, by the way, this is what New Who has forgotten, right? I understand in 2005 he had to make it a bit of a drama to win the mainstream audience over and to make the show successful. Yeah. But we're in 2024 now. The show the show has been going, New Who's been going, what, 15, 16 years now. So it has years behind it now. What Doctor Who needs to do, it needs to go back to basics and needs to go back to what it was, telling stories and being just pure. It needs to go back to sci-fi with the odd historical like it used to do back in the day. It's as simple as that. This is not even a hard fix, though. This is the thing. It's not even a hard fix. RTD could have the highest rated show tomorrow if he just listened to the right people out there. We're not telling you that we don't want you to do certain things. Of course, be creative. Introduce new stuff to us. We're not against that. But remember, you're writing Doctor Who. You're not writing Years and Years or It's a Sin or any of the other shows that you did when you were being hugely successful and won awards for. This is Doctor Who. This is a completely different animal. It's a completely different show, and you've got to treat it like that. If you start treating Doctor Who like you've treated Years and Years, It's a Sin, and all those other shows, well, then Doctor Who's going to lose its identity. And it already has under Chris Chibnall, in my opinion, and it needs to go back and reclaim its identity.
And as you're saying, when you refer to Years and Years, that was shown at 9 p.m. on the BBC, so it was an adult audience, and it wasn't for kids. And we keep getting told it's for a younger audience, and if we don't like it, it's not for us. The issue is they can't have it both ways. We have got a section today on the ratings, so I'll try and kind of move that in on there on engagement of the viewers. But the whole idea is, it did do well statistically. It was one of the top shows at the time, and I'll show you that later. But they could have maybe got there just because it's Doctor Who. Did they need all this messaging? Because the messaging was in there, they go, there you go. You see, it proves it. No, it doesn't prove anything. It proves that Doctor Who is a strong vehicle, and you may not need to use all that stuff to get there. In fact, as Noel has just said, it might do even better. I know a lot of people who did switch off in those last 15 minutes when that discussion happened, and those people I wasn't soliciting a comment, they made the comment. So in other words, they were angered about it. Okay, then I think a few little points I wanted to mention with the panel. You see, on safeguarding of canon, on safeguarding of a character, the Doctor character still did his what. So there you go, consistency. Had Alonzi in the taxi. I can't stand that phrase. The what I can't stand. So he's regenerated and said what. He said what with Donna when he pulled the boxes off and all the rest of it. But she plays it so well, Catherine Tate. It got away with it because it worked for her.
I thought
but
that
I'm just getting. Yeah. That's what I mean. So there's consistent threads. It's just how they're used. The reference to Wilf, I still loved all that. In fact, it's still sad to think about this because they say he's 94, he's in sheltered accommodation. And the one thing I'll say now, and I'll see if anyone wants to say anything about the safeguarding here. The Doctor character said at one point, I loved Donna Noble. And he went, and he does a kind of Bill Nye kind of, and then is that what type of person I am? And then a few moments later, he says, I really love Wilf.
Yeah, I love that man.
Yeah. And we like the character, but this is the Doctor doesn't do this emotional baggage stuff. And we see him later on in the giggle laden with emotional baggage. To me, this is changing the same, it's endangering the program as it always was. Do we really want the Doctor labored by every death, by every injury, by every character? Because half the time he's saving the universe. I'm sorry, he wouldn't sleep at night. So I just find that problematic. Does anyone else have a view on that one? On why?
But that's the thing in modern Who, though. John brought it up earlier. Sometimes the companions are more important than the Doctor, and the Doctor feels like a sideshow in his own universe. This is a like they did it sometimes in classic Who, but it was mostly prevalent in New Who. We're always going to have issues with David Tennant coming back because it was whether RTD could deliver again or not. And fans are up in the air with it. Donna's character was consistent to a certain point, but you know, then there were things about her and things that she said that I didn't like. But this whole thing, it just I just don't get what they're trying to do with Doctor Who now. I'm actually seriously, I watched it again. As I said, I watched this today because I wanted it to be fresh, and
Yeah.
I just don't know what I was watching. I mean, the first 15 minutes. Can I say something positive? Because some people are saying we're being cynical in the chat, and
Yeah.
I just want to
Yeah, I
address.
saw that
Listen,
too.
if there's
Well,
something good for me to say, I would say this is what I will say. I loved the whole part with David Tennant talking about Wilf. I did love that, and I don't with Donna in regards to Donna, where he said he loved her. I don't think that's quite true. But with Wilf, he did love Wilf. We've seen that during his run in Doctor Who. There's that moment in the two-parter, isn't there, when David Hensley with Wilf features very heavily in, and he have a moment up on the spaceship. Do you remember?
yeah. Yeah.
Where he was trying to hand him the gun. So yes, I do believe there was love there, genuine love between the Doctor and Wilf. Wilf, the Doctor saw Wilf as proud as his dad, basically. He said because there was that moment where they have, I'd be proud to call you. What was I'd be proud to call you me dad or something like that was that line. Like there's genuine love there. I don't think the love was there. I mean, Donna and the Doctor were close, but to actually say you love them now, I didn't buy that. And
Yeah.
then we get to
Now,
the whole scene with the pronouns. But we'll
now you
go on to that.
reference. Now you referenced Reese said this podcast is so cynical, and Jamie Reese has asked and has echoed the question I had in my head, which is I'm interested in what the thread thinks. Hi Reese, what do you think it is cynical about what we're saying? I'm a former teacher who is following Ofsted inspection criteria on judging a program. And what me and John and Michelle, particularly, we've talked about this before. We wanted our podcast, our YouTube channel, to be as objective as we could try to be. We all have opinions, of course we do. But what we want to do is bring common sense to the debate to try and actually take away all the kind of, oh, that's my doctor, that's my this. No. We're going to judge every episode on these criteria. And that's all we're trying to do. If it comes across as cynical, that's a shame because I think we're all trying hard to judge this one single episode. Was it good TV? Did it follow the Doctor Who formula? Blah, blah, blah. That's what we're trying to do. So I'll be intrigued by your answer because I'm interested, but I don't know. I don't think I'm being cynical.
I'm
being
trying my best to be
Yeah.
positive. I really, I'm not trying to be. I don't think anybody on this panel is trying to be cynical deliberately. I mean,
The
Time
thing
Scales
that
likes some
no,
stuff about it. Michelle
no,
likes some stuff about it. John likes some stuff about it. I
yeah,
do like
Yeah.
certain things in it as well. Same with Brendan. I mean, but there is a lot wrong. I mean, as fans, you know, what are we supposed to do? Are we just supposed to stay silent and just let it continue the way it is, or do we voice our opinion, hoping that the people that are in charge of the show maybe take on board what fans have to say and maybe do something, do the right thing, basically. You know, when I've been supporting this show, following this show, being a fan of this show. I'm in my 40s, right? I remember watching my first episode as a kid. The first Doctor Who episode I ever watched was Pyramids of Mars, and I was transfixed. I was about 4 or 5 years of age. I remember it clearly. And Peter Davison, I think at the time, was the Doctor on TV. So while I was introduced through Pyramids of Mars, and then obviously then Peter Davison then was my doctor growing up. I love this show. This show even saved me life back in 2005. I was going through a bad patch. I shouldn't be here, let's just say. And if I hadn't have been for Doctor Who and RTD bringing the show back, I wouldn't be here today talking to you. I'm grateful for what RTD has done. But I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up his backside. If there's anything that we don't like, we're going to discuss it. If there's things we like, we'll discuss it. I'm just being myself and I'm being truthful to myself and I can't lie.
Yeah.
All I want
Well-
is this show to be the best version that it can be. So me and everybody else that's here on panels can talk about Doctor Who in a positive way.
And this is what me and John talked about this for a long, long time about when we set up a channel, how we want it to come across. Now, John, you had something to say.
Yeah, it's. I'm just trying to read the latest comment from Reese here. Uh, being cynical is not the same as being negative.
Mm.
So it's not a question of if you hear something negative about the episode that we're being cynical, because if I had an ulterior motive and if I was deliberately trying to trash the message or trash the episode or trash the writer when I knew it was good, but I was doing it for an ulterior motive or for a selfish motive, then yeah, that would be cynical. But by being negative, it doesn't make me cynical. And I'm more than happy to be accused of being negative about certain parts of this. And I have been positive about other parts of it too. So it's not a question of cynicism, because that's not something I do. And I'm not the person I am. I mean, I open my arms to the world. And every single episode of Doctor Who I sat and watched during the 13th Doctor's reign. And I know there were some fans who didn't even give her one episode of a chance, let alone one season or multiple seasons. I sat down and watched every episode, and I watched every episode with an open mind in the hope that it would be better than the last one.
Mm-hmm.
That's not being cynical, that's about being open. And I was open to this. And I still said, and I've said in previous streams of ours here in the Sense Sphere, that while I do have issues with this is still better Doctor Who than we've had for several years.
I agree.
A lot of issues,
That kind
and
of,
some of those we've already outlined. But if Doctor Who's to be good, it has to be about good characters, good stories, great writing. And the message, if it comes, let it come in after that.
now, can I just show? Obviously, you know, as the creator of this program, I want to say one or two things. To be fair, and it backs up a lot of things I said there, and even Jamie Reese in the margin. Reese, have you watched our 10 Reasons We Love Doctor Who? That show specifically went for hook, line, and sinker why we love Doctor Who. Me, John, Michelle, I think Timescales, everybody, Noel, whether we like aspects of programs, we've watched every episode.
Yeah.
So we have been there all the way through. Our giggle episode, so if you looked at that as evidence of whether we're cynical or not, or too negative, we give that a good overall viewpoint. The Church on Ruby Road, we judged as good with one or two areas that needed improvement, but we were overall good on our criteria. So, you know, judge us by that, because we have done that. But may I also say...
Remember, Brendan, the point, criticism and negativity are completely different from cynicism.
But can I also say...
Right,
that
criticism, perfect
Can
word.
I also say that as somebody who structures these programs, we do start with a contentious item. We say that. That's the whole point. We start with a contentious item, then we settle in to discussing the program. So if it sounded a bit too negative at the moment, if in your eyes, I think there's an awful lot we do like. I'll say I love the opening credits, and I'll just give one example there. Absolutely, they wowed me when it came back. I like Murray Gold. So, you know, there's you know, there's a lot there. And
Actually, the start of this episode starts off great. You have David Tennant talking. You know, he does the whole thing where he's reminding the audience, because obviously we've got new fans now, so we've got to kind of get them to understand where we've been. So they go back through the history. It's great. Goes into the title sequence, and the first 15 minutes of this show genuinely feels like an RTD back to the old times of Doctor Who. They even bring up the gender ideology stuff. But as you said, right, I'm just going to say this. Again, I want to point this out. No, everything has to feel natural, right? If you force certain agendas into Doctor Who, fans are going to smell it a mile away. And that's the thing. When RTD did it back in 2005, when he introduced characters like Captain Jack and all that, it was all done naturally. I mean, people give out, oh, we don't want representation and all of this. Well, John David Tennant, you know, era, you look at that era, you look at Captain Jack being introduced, you look at the Moffat era, there was a lot of representation. There was a lot of inclusion, but the characters were well developed, like.
Yeah.
We weren't complaining about their sexuality or what they identified as.
I appreciate it, Noel. I'm going to move us on because, to be fair, there's a lot more to say, and we like to, represent the thread and actually address anything if that's the case. As Reese's actually said, to kind of conclude this for now, actually, I find John to be much needed voice of reason in the conversation. Thinks I'm trying to be objective. I'm trying to chair as well. Maybe expand the panel. Actually, can I just say, I will disagree with you there, Reese, because my point and my modus operandi here is this. We wanted on the Sense Sphere to cover every opinion in fandom if we could. We don't want to be an echo chamber. So in one way, Reese, I'm pleased if you're not happy with all the panelists all the time, with their opinions, because the point is, I want debate. I don't want agreement all the time. If we all love an episode, well, that'll be amazing. But I want everybody to come with their experiences and their backgrounds, and I want to just then explore. And so in a way, I'm not going to be looking for more and more panelists because I'm trying to find everyone who agrees with me. No. Hate that. What's the point of the program if you do that? I want debate. I really want to show fans out there that you can debate without falling out. So that's where we're coming from. Go on, Michelle.
And Reese, you're saying that you feel more depressed after watching the show. Honey, I really take care of yourself. We're not meant to make anybody feel down or afterwards. And as somebody who struggles with their mental health, honey, just take care of yourself.
Yeah.
But let's start with, I mentioned the dialogue doctor, so we need some kind of nitty gritty on actually what we're saying. And whether this is negative or positive, I do not know what the panel will say. All I'll know is I'm leading them to various bits of the script. And if they think I'm being negative, they'll tell me off. I always get told off. So here we go.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me just kind of set up. I apologize. So with this item, we do look at the script. And so I'm just going to show various items. I'm not going to dwell. If people don't have anything to say, they don't have anything to say. The thread also. I'm fascinated by sometimes what the writer's trying to do. So was this just nice humor? It's just, I know humor, you've got to be careful nowadays. Nice to meet you, skinny man. You can wear a suit that tight up to the age of 35, but no beyond it. Now, is that a nice joke? I know you can't have fat shaming. I know later in the episode you can't have dead naming. I know there's lots of things you're not allowed to do, but you're allowed to say somebody's a skinny runt, obviously.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated by that. Anybody got an opinion? Did you think that was just a nice little bit of humor and it's allowed, but there's other bits of humor you're not allowed to do?
Donna's always done that. Donna has always done that.
Right.
And if anybody has an issue with it now, then like you really need to get a life. I mean, now seriously, she's always called him skinny man, and the comment on the suit, I actually thought was very funny. And being honest, that probably be something my wife would probably say to me. So I have no problem with that. Donna and the doctor have always had this unique relationship where, you know, she called Spaceman as well, wasn't it? And that was another one as well. But she called him. Yeah, so she got that was her favorite one as well. So I have no issue with that. I thought it was nice, but when you rely on stuff like this, tropes that he's done before, and this is what I go back to, it's the same tropes that he used back before. Is that necessarily a good thing? In this case, it actually was. Yes, I did like the banter between Donna and the doctor.
It's interesting that we can have humor on some things and on not. That's all I'm saying. And if that's,
it's also making fun of him trying to dress like a hipster too. You're too young for this. You need to address your age.
Timescales. What do you reckon? I'm going to float through a few slides, and obviously Michelle and John will join a bit later on just this bit. Okay. I'm just going to race through a little bit, but are you finding these witty and fun? As Noel seems to think, yeah, that's Donna's character. You know, then we had the dead naming element. How did you receive this?
I think it was great. You know, like I said, our whole family was watching it. Everybody was laughing along. And to me, it felt like real, authentic Doctor Who, which one really shouldn't take that seriously. You know, you should be able to laugh and you should be able to escape to basically anywhere in the TARDIS. And as far as the banter, the first time that we watched it, right when it aired, I forgot to turn the subtitles on, and I have trouble understanding British voices on television. And then for my wife, it's even worse for her because she's Japanese and that's her native language. So typically, when we watch television, we'll watch it with subtitles. And with the whole family being there and with everything going on, I forgot to turn them on. So I didn't really understand much of the Star Beast at all the first time I watched it. And after realizing that, I remember telling her that, you know what, we need to watch this again because we need to watch it with the subtitles. And when watching it with the subtitles for us in English, of course, it was so much more fun. So no, I don't have a problem with the jokes in it. I enjoyed it. We laughed along and loved the episode.
Now, as we've been listening to you, there's been a whole lot of slides of different bits of dialogue. Michelle, what's your opinion on these aspects, or are you fine with it? And
I'm fine with it. Again, I don't see this episode as grooming whatsoever. I see this as teaching people to be nice to people who are perceived as different. So the discussing of the bullying was nicely done. The discussing of, is it okay that I call her gorgeous? That's okay. That's a very natural, because that's where a lot of people are having discussions with. So I have absolutely no issues with this sections whatsoever.
John?
Well, just precisely what Michelle just said. You have the sledgehammer to crack a nut stuff at the end where they slam into the doctor to be a man, and yet they're perfectly natural, and it flows directly from the characters of Sylvia, who I love. I've always loved Sylvia, struggling, obviously wanting to support both her daughter and her now granddaughter, but struggling with, is she taking the right approach? And that's a perfectly natural thing to do. And that's exactly his strengths as a writer and how you...
Yeah.
So if there's anybody watching this who has a trans person in their family, that's the way to make that message come across. That's an ideal way. Without turning to camera, a la 13th Doctor, and making a very political or hard-edged statement, that's the way to do it. And if there's more of that, I have no objection at all, because that's a very human thing. And there are people in the families who have trans children, trans teen, whatever. And while that's the case, Doctor Who shows a perfectly natural and human way of addressing that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this I have no problem with. I just think it was a shame it was all in one episode. That's the trouble, because I did the count. It's a 57-minute episode. For the first 15 minutes, we had about 5 or 6 laboured points, and the story hadn't really started apart from the spaceship had landed. And then with the 10 minutes at the end that weren't actually any plot, it was just finishing off. I just found that a shame that we got bogged down. I have no problem with what you said, John. I mean, yeah, we all, we all want to be respectful to each other. This is the world we're in. There were 1 or 2 things that I do want to just kind of throw out there just before I move on and accept that. But please, anybody come in. So it was after the, let me just get this up. This bit I did find a problem with, but not for the reasons you might be guessing. Oi, Jason, da-da-da-da, and apparently that's called dead naming. I didn't know that, but that's called dead naming. And, and then Donna says, because I remember she had lots of names at school. This is her friend, somebody Wingate, one of her friends, and that's her son. And she said, and I invented all the names. Now, I always thought, hold on a minute, in this clever little bit of repartee, which is I will descend as your mother and I will defend you. Great. Yeah, protective ma'am, mother hen. She sounded as though she was saying I was a bully at school and I called this lady names and I give the names to other people to use on her. And I thought, I'm an ex-head of year. John's an ex-head teacher. I'm sorry, but in you're trying to say, I'm not happy with, I'm sorry, this is how you deal with it and I'll support you. She was actually saying I was a school bully and I called names and I'm going to make sure with it. I thought, hold on. 2 wrongs don't make a right here. And yes, okay, no dead naming, no disrespect. But she sounds as though she disrespected this lad's mother at school. How is that okay, Michelle?
Yeah, I think she's
interpretation of this wasn't that she is saying it's okay to bully somebody. It's that mother should know what it's like to be bullied, and so she's raising a child that now is a bully.
Okay.
So I think it's more like she should know better to raise her children with more empathy. I think that's what the implication was. Because I bullied her, she's been bullied. She's now being a bad mom.
That's exactly what I took it to.
Not that it's okay for me to call her chef.
Right, so Reese, you can see I will ask a question, and Michelle and John have just pointed out I didn't see that aspect, and I appreciate it that now. That's the point of this. That's not being cynical. That's
I agree with Michelle and John.
Yeah, I never detected that until Michelle just mentioned it. I saw it as simply a brief representation of bullying, but I didn't get the deeper meaning there until Michelle just mentioned that. That's very interesting.
And that's what we want a panel for, different viewpoints and all the rest of it. So
well, you see, Michelle's a writer, so Michelle gets all of this and gets, you know what I mean, so she understands.
Well, also, I wasn't bullied. I was always been bullied, so I understand kind of what it's like to be bullied. Not necessarily, I wasn't bullied because of my sexuality. I was bullied because of my weight, which is something I still struggle with, and so that I'm very sympathetic to what it's like to be absolutely bullied every day and have the teachers go, "Well, it's your fault because you need to lose some weight."
If you think about it as
here.
well,
I was bullied also, Michelle. It's because I have crooked teeth. So when I was young, kids would make fun of me and have nicknames for me because of my teeth. And then I'm also very tall and I was very thin. So the bully nickname for me was chicken legs. So I felt very self-conscious about my legs being so skinny, so I didn't even participate in school sports such as swimming and things like that. So yeah, I was bullied too when I was a kid, and
I was called a cow.
Definitely,
I was a cow,
I can
and then they would move. Then they would move and call me a cow.
Oh, good Lord.
And this is what we appreciate from either this program or other things, that you have a refuge, you have a place where you can see that, you know, there's an outlet and or people understand your situation. A lot of people have said that with Doctor Who over the years, haven't they? Okay, so you know that this is the famous bit from the episode, the pronoun element. Now, when you look at it in the cold light of day, is this just, as John was saying regarding the grandma, is this just classic, we're being taught nowadays just how we show respect to each other, or was it just a bit laboured? That's all I'm going to say there. But before people come in, I'll just finish off the dialogue doctor's element so that you've got your examples to chew on. So the other bit was here. We're binary. She's not, because the doctor's male and female and neither and more. Now, that seems to be cruising a bit more into the trans debate to me that I was wanting us to do with the Doctor character, that the Doctor's not male or female anymore. You're more than that. But then it flows into this final one I want to show you. We know everything, thanks, and you know nothing. Now, that's quite binary language. It's a shame you're not a woman anymore, obviously, because you know nothing. Something a male presenting Time Lord will never understand. Now, this was written by RTD, and so this is not cynicism. This is the actual fact of what was in the script. I find that problematic. It goes too far on the message. The message is fine, but I think that's overplayed. And this male presenting thing, there's no such thing in my eyes, you were born this or that. There's no such thing as about male presenting. This is not cosplay. So I think this is a very problematic bit of script. It's a very confusing bit for a family show. I'll finish there. Anybody want to come in? Michelle?
This is where I lost it, and I've talked to other people who absolutely love this episode, but they hate this part too. Because I was trying to argue in one of the other podcasts. I can understand passing down the info and the genetic info to Rose, because that is something that's being proven through trauma and studies of genetics. So that totally makes sense. But then when it loses the rails of the you won't understand because you're not a man, I kind of understand where they're trying to go, because sometimes as women we are told, "Oh, you're over emotional. You just need to let it go," like Elsa. And so that's where when they release that info. But this is where it completely loses it.
Yeah, where do you stand on this timescales?
Well, I'm sitting here questioning, thinking, I hope Brendan doesn't ask me next because I don't know if I should actually be honest about this. This is the other part that I did not care for, and this kind of ties in with safeguarding the franchise. When I saw this and the previous part that I didn't care for, which is actually near the end, it just once again made me wonder, why does the showrunner have so much apparent personal control over the program? And things like this make me wonder, why doesn't the showrunner run the show, and why don't the writers write? Um, there's so many other writers that could bring creativity and difference and enjoyment to the show, and that's actually really what I was thinking when I saw this section. Is, wow, what a shame. Why aren't there other creative talents involved in this program? And how is it safeguarding the program to have one person or a small group of people that have so much that they seem to want to personally put into the show, if that makes any sense?
Yeah.
It
I
does,
mean,
100%. And may add the Oscars for the 1.6 million people who in the UK who actually watch the Oscars. One of the winners got up and he made a statement that was perfect. He says there are other directors and writers out there, but Hollywood is not giving them a chance to shine. And this is the same thing where it's this self-repeating circle. You look at the classic Who eras. John Nathan Turner never wrote an episode of Doctor Who. He was the showrunner. He let the writers and the script editors, for better or for worse, control the show. And now we've gotten writers who are writing, or showrunners who are producing too much, and they're getting their candles burned out at both ends.
So we've got
well, that part actually distracted me from the show. That took me out of Doctor Who for a moment. And when I watch Doctor Who, I want to be in Doctor Who. I don't want to be thinking about who the actors are or who wrote the program, or who the showrunner is. I want to be in the adventure. And things like this, it takes me out. It's like, oh man, why?
Yeah.
Why do they have to have this? So anyway, that's my opinion.
Well, look. I think the Star Beast is unusual because my question was in our advert was this? I mean, this was the big relaunch. Was it a stellar relaunch or a serious misfire? And of course, it's a binary question. The answer's somewhere in the middle. But the point is, I did think it was a shame that any fan worth their salt will have to discuss these areas because it was littered throughout the episode, which I think was a shame. But that was a choice by the writer. Now, our second criteria, and this is where Reese, if you're still there, might find we are going to be extremely objective and fair. On criteria 2, the effective use of resources by the director and the production team, visual effects, direction, music, sets, explosions, the whole blooming lot. Now, I'm going to say it very quickly, but I could go to town on this and say I loved it. This is when, I'm watching it again today. I thought that street battle scene, this is Doctor Who that you would never see before. I know we've had battle scenes with a Dalek on a bridge and everything, but actually, when you look at that scene and the drone shot, you went high, and not only did you have a full street, a long shot with all the lasers and everything and explosions of cars, but you then had 3 Wrath warriors in hovercraft mode, and then the camera turned, panned around, and you saw the Doctor going through a loft window across. What a shot! That was, am I being too negative? Well, excuse me.
I could go into ecstasies just watching the meat walk. I got this thing for these little wobbly things that kind of walk like that anyways. I mean, that was hysterical. The little wiggle. I mean, I have a thing. That was great. My dad actually came down and watched it live with me, which is something, and he's not a big Who fan at all. And he looks at me and goes, well, the Disney money's paying off.
Yeah, the special effects were absolutely outstanding, and it was so much fun watching it with a group of people, family that hadn't seen it before. And yeah, we had little kids laughing and making comments like, "Ah, what in the world?" So yeah, the
And the guy's sleeping there and completely oblivious to World War III.
Oh,
going
yeah, the
on,
snoring.
and then you see this little meat thing walking past him.
And I don't want to dominate, and I know I'm going to ask you in a moment, but honestly, the snoring bit I remember with the beep the meep going past, and I thought this is classic Doctor Who. Beep the meep in the back of a taxi, classic Doctor Who. But it looks so expensive, and it was delivered well, and I can't labour the point too much. That action scene went on for quite a while. The explosions in the house, they built a whole house set, didn't they? All that was done well.
And destroyed it.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say about the action sequence, because it took quite a while there, is I could tell that this was Doctor Who with money, because the size of the cast, the amount of extras, it had scale. And it, if I've been looking at some of the script as an ex-English teacher would, I will also now point out where I was wowed. And so, Reese, as I've got you on the screen, I thought the set piece of them crawling through the attics was wonderfully executed and very Doctor Who in its silliness. I agree. And I love that, and I want that to stay in the programme. Noel, I was going to come to you then.
Yeah, I agree with the whole panel. What can you say? I mean, it does look nice and polished. I did say that'd be a worry for me, because it probably takes something away from Doctor Who, because Doctor Who has always been a bit crappy with its practical and special effects, and we've known that as Doctor Who fans, that becomes that's part and parcel of our show. But visual effects, everything, even the Wraith Warriors there, beep the meep, and I mean that scene, I do agree, which is all. I mean, that street scene, the battle scenes. I mean, you can't get any better as a Doctor Who fan. But I'll get into it another part of that point in a minute. I don't want to take over here. So when we get into the other parts of it, I'll come back to this, because special effects and all of this good stuff doesn't excuse the other stuff. So it kind of paints over the problems the show actually has. But yes, special effects, you cannot argue. Probably the best that we've gotten in the show ever. Even better than the Chib, because you look at the Chib's special effects, it's kind of aged already in certain episodes. But this looks brilliant. It does. Yeah. This is Doctor Who polished. Whether we'll all like it by the end, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I love the visually, the sets. I mean, this is going to be, RTD is going to give us something absolutely amazing visually, no doubt. And Disney do visuals as well. Disney is famous for its visuals, not so famous for its storytelling nowadays. But I mean, look at that. I wanted that for Christmas. No matter how much I didn't like certain parts of this story, I wanted one of those for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't release one, so I'm annoyed at them now. We got a sonic screwdriver, which is a nice sonic screwdriver, but I'm kind of like everybody, kind of sick of sonic screwdrivers. But that would have been a lovely Christmas present. Imagine giving that to your niece or nephew, young niece or nephew.
They would love it.
Apparently, Russell T Davies wanted it to be released, but nobody would bite on it. He tried to have it, and I've heard rumors now that a Beep the Meep character is coming. So hopefully under Disney, but I've heard that he wanted a Beep the Meep on the shelves, and several toy companies passed on it.
Yeah, John, I was going to say to you regarding on this criterion, and I know you normally mention direction, I'm not leading you there, but I actually thought that with the set, that spaceship, I noticed when they were pressing buttons outside the Beep spaceship, it looked metal, it looked real, it looked authentic, and I just kept looking today thinking, gosh, Doctor Who, it used to be criticised for sets, look at it now. The Beep the Meep presentation, I was really impressed with that. The eyes that Donna Noble poked at. But what were you impressed with the engagement of the resources, the actors, etc., the choice of them?
Well, yeah, but when you spend money, you get good effects. But that's not what Doctor Who's about. I struggle with this notion that things are good because they got a bigger budget and bigger effects. That's not what Doctor Who's about. It never has been. Doctor Who survived for 26 years and a lot more episodes and is New Who on a wing and a prayer and a budget of tuppence halfpenny, which made the writers a lot more clever and original and smart in terms of what they had to do, as did with the designers and the costume designers and directors and all that sort of stuff. But when you got a lot more money and you can rest on spectacle, it does encourage people perhaps a bit more lackadaisical about the other items in the production. I can get effects like this anywhere in the cinema now, in science fiction, if I want to go and watch them, but I don't. I've told you before, I don't like science fiction. It's not something that appeals to me, but I love Doctor Who. And there's a reason why I love Doctor Who, because it doesn't look like anything else as well as sounding or being like anything else. So, yeah, let's celebrate the Doctor Who doesn't look cheap anymore, but I don't care if it looks cheap or not. Because,
John,
hold on, let me finish my point. That's fine. If that's the way Doctor has to look in the modern world, fine. But if you're going to chuck millions of pounds per episode, then it should look stellar. Absolutely should. But it doesn't make it better.
However, that wasn't my point. This is inspection criteria 2, John. I'm going to come back to you. On the effective use of resources, as I said to you, you normally...
Use them effectively. So I'll answer the question. You used them effectively. The effects
No.
were
It wasn't. However, the criteria is objective for a reason. Yes, I asked you a question, but you can answer it in any which way you want. So, for example, you normally judge a Doctor Who episode on certain things like the direction, etc., not the special effects. I agree with that. What I was saying was, how are you judging this episode on its effective use of resources? So, for example, if anybody's wondering where else you can go with this, all of our panelists, I mean, somebody could say, I'm a special effects freak, I'll judge it on that. Somebody else might say, like John, I'm not interested in that big budget stuff. I'm more interested in this. So, John, I'll come back to you because you do have different criteria for this one, really, for the use of resources.
It all boils down to the story.
The selection.
The story.
Well, the story comes in engagement criteria 3.
Yeah,
I
know it does. I know it does. Okay, well, Brendan, I can't get away from this. Yeah, it was well directed. It was well financed. It was well budgeted for. It had great effects. All good. It doesn't make it good. It might make it more visually pleasing, but
no. Listen, I'll explain again for those who have
I am
forgotten.
listening.
we are inspecting objectively an episode based on 3 criteria. Those 3 criteria.
I've given you my answer. All those things were good. Okay, they were good.
Well, that's the point. I'm not leading us to saying, the story writing comes in engagement and it comes in various things. But, Shirley Ann Bingham, Ruth Madeley, good selection of character, good actor. I know some people think that the Rose actor was not well selected.
No.
That's where some people might go with their judgments of this criteria. Not that I'm leading them, but that's what I'm saying. This is not to say that...
Yeah, I get that. Okay, but still, it could have had the best cast. Okay? They could have cast the best people playing whatever characters they choose to introduce, but it still doesn't make a good story.
Exactly.
The story's not there, and it wasn't. So, yeah, I'll judge you. I'll meet you. You keep batting me over the head with this point, judge it on those things. And I have. They were great. They were the best effects ever in Doctor Who. There was some fabulous direction. There were some great performances. But you know what? Give me City of Death any day of the week.
It all falls apart because of the writing, is what John is saying. You have to have good writing, good structure there, and character that. And I know that's the third one that you're doing, but this is why it's so hard for us to see where John's coming from. I know where John's coming from. I'm the same as him.
Well, John understands where this all came from. He does know that actually we said we don't like meandering streams where they just waffle on for 2 hours when they review an episode. So I put structure in and then he argues with it. But that's classic John. So what we're saying is criteria 2 is just
were you being
basically,
silly?
John, what we're saying is, as John knows this because he's been inspected by the same criteria as a head teacher.
No. We have a different criteria in Scotland.
Well, you didn't argue with the criteria, I'm sure. So basically,
No. I'm going to leave at this point. No. I don't think it's you understanding me here, Brendan. Absolutely, I get the criteria. But if you're asking me, I've given you a reply. Every single one of them hit the nail. Absolutely, they did. But does that add to my overall experience or pleasure as a viewer or as a Doctor Who fan? No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. So the criteria is there, and you know why it's there, because all these ingredients are a formula, and we discuss the formula. Sometimes they add to it.
I'm just giving you my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm just explaining why I'm running the show like this and structuring it, which you agreed with.
All right, children, take
Come
it out.
on, lads. Come on. We're having a chat about Doctor Who. Come on, the more important stuff to be falling out over. We get what you're saying, Brendan. But at the same time, I think John is trying to express, even with all those things, it looking fantastic. It all falls apart if there's no right. And I know that's the third part of your criteria, but it has to be said because that's how John is feeling. And I agree with him. You can have the best looking thing
I have had inspections when I've been in school. And yes, they can say you spent that on that resource well. Yes, you allocated your staff accordingly. Yes, you when something wasn't working, you took it and changed it. But you know what? It's still not good enough because the overall learning experience at the end isn't up to what it should be. And that's the point I'm trying to make.
Well, we've got a visitation. Let me have a look here. Let's take a look. Get the right one on. Let's have a look. So, who are you again? What are you doing here?
Hello, everybody. I'm Wokey.
And what have you got to say? Because you've just joined our fiery debate here.
Well, I just want to say, first of all, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Sensesphere.
Yes, timescales normally reminds me, and yet again.
No. It's the John Show. Hello, John.
Why am I so big?
I don't.
Hi, John.
Comment on that.
Is your husband there? What's that?
Well, listen, I've got identity issues myself.
Yeah, go on then.
Well, I identify as a boy.
Oh well done. Was it?
I'm not a puppet.
All right, I know. Edwin Droog in our thread normally tells me off that these are real people and not pets or puppets, and that's an insult. I'm not dead naming you. I'm shaming you in a different way. You are real, are you?
Of course I'm real. Nobody pulls my strings.
Say no more.
No, but someone has their hand up your backside.
No, how could you say such a thing?
Well, Wokey, your voice is changing. Are you going through puberty?
I'm going through something.
Going through a transition. So, what's your name again?
It's Wokey.
Wokey Stroker.
Wokey
right.
Stroker, yeah.
We call you Wokey because you tend to be really with the younger generation, don't you, regarding all these things. So did you find the Star Beast a problem?
No, not at all. I was well on board with the story.
And what about all the issues we've been discussing so far?
I agree with them all. And I thought Rishi was really good in the comments. He mentioned puppets, so I came on.
Did he mention puppets?
Yeah.
I didn't see that. So basically, we've got Crimple in here. Rocky's American accent has increased. I know. I think it depends what time of day it is. It's problematic to me. Beverly Hillbillies. It's hardly. I mean, I'm sure Michelle and Timescales are insulted by this American accent. Really?
No, not really. No,
No, definitely not. Definitely. Yeah, I've definitely heard worse.
If I want to be insulted, I'll just listen to a Big Finish American version.
There you go.
Can I come and live with you, Michelle, at the White House?
No, not the White House. No.
Oh, you don't want to go there, Wokey. President Biden's there. You wouldn't want to go there with that man in the White House.
Nobody wants me. I tried to live with John and he wouldn't have me.
Well, I can. You know what? You can always come to my work because I can always use an extra guide, and we'll work on your homework, on your history homework.
Well, we've got Archibald Lazarus who's confused because he says you were English last time, but whether that was his granddad who has a Yorkshire accent, maybe that's it.
I'm from the deep south.
Of where?
Yorkshire.
Yeah, exactly. We've done that.
You ain't deep South U.S., honey.
Yeah, we've done that joke before. It's getting like BBC Two. Well, I think it's time for your tea. Clear off because we're trying to finish off the last criteria before everybody has a tea. Okay.
See you, Okie.
See you all.
Nice
Bye.
to meet you.
Like and subscribe.
Missing you already.
Hope to see you again.
Yeah.
Hey, Brendan, if I can go back to the last thing before we move on, if you don't mind.
Of course you can.
With John, I totally agree with him, and I completely get what he's saying. And an example is that even though we didn't have the subtitles on the first time that our family watched The Star Beast, after watching it the second time, I still didn't understand the story. Someone had asked me, what happened? You've seen this twice now. And I'm like, well, I don't really know. I actually couldn't explain the story to them. Okay. However, there's also a novel of this episode written by a very talented writer, Gary Russell, someone who has been involved in all aspects of Doctor Who. And he's kind of a hybrid of a fan and a professional. He is a Doctor Who fan, and he's also a professional, and he wrote the novel. And that right there, I am reading, and I would highly recommend it. To me, the novel is far superior than the television episode, but I seem to always feel that way about any time I read a novel of a film. So as far as a story, if somebody did not get the story on television, and if they really want to understand the Star Beast, I would highly recommend the novel The Star Beast by Gary Russell.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and Michelle, you've got it on order, haven't you? You've been waiting for it to arrive, I think.
Yes, it won't come. My copy won't come into April, and I'm supposedly, though it hasn't shipped yet, getting The Giggle and Whelple Yonder today. So hopefully, maybe this week I'll have it.
The cover
Awesome.
looks amazing. Can I just comment on the cover of that novel? It looks absolutely amazing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure who the artist was on that. That is a beautiful cover.
They're trying to do. You can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to do that 70s style, aren't they? With is it like pencil art? I don't know what it's like. The dots, isn't it? How they do it. It seems to be distinctive of that earlier era when you had Patrick Troughton and the Cybermen. That kind of touch to it. Spearhead from Space, etc. Well, as you know, we're trying to judge the episode, and of course the last criteria, if we're happy with that one, the last one, which I know Noel's been saying, I know it links with this, is how engaged were you? How entertained were you? And the one I normally put involved in this is a science fiction family show. So, if somebody says it was great soap opera and I really enjoyed the family in that, I keep thinking, I know, but it wasn't a soap opera, it was Doctor Who. Did it get you? I always look for in Doctor Who, does it scare you? Is there a moment when it actually does that? That's what I judge it on personally, because Doctor Who is there for me to give you some thrills like that. So when we judged The Giggle, I said, what a shame that the puppets are only in it for a second when they were next to Donna, and turning that man into a wooden puppet. What a shame he was then, not put in a real jeopardy situation for longer. That's how I judge it, but we're all different. So on engagement of audience and whether it really got you, John, where would you start regarding, did it, is it an episode you want to watch again? In the pantheons of Doctor Who, where does it stand? Did it grab you?
Yeah, by the throat, chiefly. It was. I watched twice. I watched it now. I doubt very much if I'll watch it a third time, and not for any of the things we've mentioned, just purely because it wouldn't hold me. I had to watch it in 2 sittings that hour. It just wasn't very. It didn't hold me. I'm more likely to watch The Giggle again than I am Star Beast. I'm more likely to watch The Church on Ruby Road again than I am The Star Beast. So. And I hate Brendan to bring this back up again. So despite all the stuff and how well appropriated the resources were in terms of good direction, all the rest of it, ultimately, that doesn't draw me back to it for a rewatch because essentially I was not bored, but the story didn't hold me. And that's the point. Did it hold the viewing figures? Did it hold the viewers? Well, not all of them, because people left, it dropped off next time round. So a lot of people decided to opt out. So they weren't looking at it and saying, "Oh, I like this new Doctor Who. I must go and tell someone and bring more people on board." If anything, the opposite happened. Not by many, but it happened. So yeah, it it will not stand many rewatches from most people, and I doubt very much if I watch it again.
So just on the engagement front, just to help the panel here, we will look at the ratings. John referenced them there. So if I remind you what the ratings were, that might just help things. Oh, there you go. Right, so overnight, well, not overnight, I apologize, 5.08 million it got overnight, and with consolidated, it got 7.61. And just before I do ask the panel what they really thought, I know John always asks what was the audience appreciation, and it was 84 for that episode. And if you compare it to Jodie Whittaker's last season, it stands better there, apart from her first episode. And if you kind of look at that night, you know, it beats various other kind of shows that were on the TV. So basically, it seemed to do all right. That's statistics, and that's not being cynical. That's just statistics. Where would you like to go with it, timescales? How did you receive it? Did it engage you?
Well, definitely. And I think that my opinion of it may differ than that of the average viewer because of the fact that I was really excited to be watching it with family who had never seen Doctor Who before. So the actual setting that I was in when watching it the first time is not the same as just sitting at home watching it by myself or with my wife. It was because I watched it with a group of people. And I think that that really added to the excitement of it. I saw it 3 times the weekend that it aired, twice the first day, once again the next day, and I've watched about half of it since. And I probably wouldn't watch it again. And that's not because of disliking it or anything. It's just that I've already seen it, and now I'm enjoying the novel. But it was very engaging, but it could have very well been primarily because of the fact that I was watching it with a group of people.
Yeah, and before I bring Michelle in, the Meep story, according to Cybermat Strikes, the Meep story resolution was sidelined by the messaging around the Dr. Donner resolution with Rose, which we've mentioned in the Dialogue Doctor section. It's not good jumping on point for a reboot. You don't have to address that point by Cybermat, but Michelle, did it engage you? Is it going to be a go-to episode in, say, 10, 20 years' time?
Well, it engaged me, and I did enjoy watching it. I did watch it twice on the same day. Will it be a go-to? I'm not sure. I mean, well, probably not. But then again, things do change over time, and episodes that were considered to be wonderful or at the time of airing are now not that big of a deal, and vice versa. So only time will tell.
That's true. Noel, where do you stand on this one?
I wish the giggle had been the first part of the 60th special. Look, I'll say this. Yeah, ratings wise, this looks like it's done okay. But I wasn't engaged because the storytelling was absolutely awful. As John said, you can have all the flash and bang, make it look good, but you polish a turd, it's still a turd. I would be with timescales. I would rather, now that the novelization and the way he's described it makes me far more excited than what I saw on screen. It's a shame, really, to be quite honest with you, because I so wanted this to work, because RTD was coming back, but I knew very early on when he started opening his mouth, we were in for something. I just wish he had went with the giggle as the first part, because the giggle is fast. I think the giggle is actually probably the best out of all the specials we got anyway. The Star Beast, unfortunately, gets bogged down on its messaging, and the character development. I mean, if I hadn't got, think about this, right? If we hadn't got Donna or David Tennant's Doctor back,
Yeah.
the rest of the characters are all kind of very bland, to be honest. And you bring Ruth Madley in, great actress, loved her in years and years, and then you know you have little gimmicks with a wheelchair after giving out about Davros being in a wheelchair or a life support unit as we call it, but he calls it a wheelchair. You know, things like that. Look, he's done better than what Chris Chibnall has done, but if you look at what Chris Chibnall has done, it hasn't been very good. I'm still hoping Series 15 he delivers, but right now he has not. No, he hasn't won me over. I actually, like John, got bored watching the Star Beast. It's not engaging on any level. I did like the battle scene. If it hadn't have been for the battle scenes and a bit of the dialogue, I probably wouldn't have. If this wasn't Doctor Who, if this was any other show, I would have turned it off.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm
that's
not a
where I
lover.
am with it right now.
While it always sounds as though I was obsessed with special effects, I'm not a glutton for it. I don't watch Marvel movies. I'm not interested in any of that stuff. It's just one of our criteria there.
No,
On
no,
the-
and
on the-
I'm not having a go at you for that. I can understand
No, I
why
know
you're
you're not.
putting that in. But what we're
Yeah.
trying to say is Doctor Who has never been about the special effects, right?
No.
And John is absolutely right. The thing that is they hardly had any budget. And when they hardly had any budget, the writers had to be creative. They had to use their intelligence, right? Now, I believe, and it's the same, it's not just Doctor Who, it's the whole industry as a whole. Special effects, CGI, and all the new technology. Now we've got AI coming along. It has made the industry lazy. And on top of that, it doesn't help them when they're not actually employing the people that have the talent, but they'd rather, you know, fill quotas, unfortunately, which is not being fair on the people that you're hiring because then they produce substandard content and then they take a lot of crap off us fans. And then instead of, you know, taking responsibility for not actually writing the stuff that they should be writing, then they criticize us, the customer, the people that actually keep the franchises alive. So look, I'll give the RTD a chance like I did with Chris Chibnall. Like John, I watched every single episode of the Chris Chibnall era and I hated it. But I watched it because I was a Doctor Who fan and I still am. And I'll never stop being a Doctor Who fan. Doctor Who right now, in my opinion, is going through a rough time, right? But I do believe that one day someone will come along and will do what is right by this show and give us what we deserve. And we do deserve it. We're not self-entitled. Doctor Who is the longest running sci-fi show on the planet. It should be respected. It should be taken care of. And whoever comes in to take care of it is a custodian and hands it over to the next person in a healthy position. Chris Chibnall didn't do that. RTD has a struggle and he had a job on his hands anyway. He had a fandom that was fractured, absolutely decimated, and you had a show that had lost all credibility and had become a joke again, just like the late 80s. He had a job, he had one job, it was to come in and stabilize it. Has he done that? He's done it to a certain extent, but when it comes to the show, he has a long way to go to get me engaged in Doctor Who again. And I tell you, I'll give him a chance and fingers crossed, and I'll be praying all of those things because you know what? There's nothing better that I want to be on a panel with all you guys here, sitting here singing from the rooftops that Doctor Who is back and it's the best sci-fi show on the bloody planet. And that's what it should be.
Well,
It should be that. That's what I believe Doctor Who should be, right?
Well,
and it can achieve that.
We've got two people in the thread who, Reese, who's stuck with us. I appreciate that, has said, and I just wanted to address this. I've seen a lot of American YouTube reactors who have never seen the show before, watch these specials, and they seem to love it. So this jumping on point is just one of these fan worries that, you know, it doesn't show in reality. So that's interesting. And then...
Yeah, that's true. I actually have not seen any YouTube reactors that disliked it.
Yeah. And then what's even more interesting, as in, is then two more down the thread. We've got Michael Neem who says Starbase is a perfect jumping off point. And this is the beauty of fandom and being a fan of this show is you know, there are certain classics we all love, but there's a lot of stories we find. I mean, I know for facts I kind of do like Twin Dilemma, but a lot of people can't stand Twin Dilemma, and that's the beauty of it half the time. I know what you're saying, Noel, and I feel that I will never cancel a show. I will always watch it. But
Yeah.
just like I've always used the analogy of being a football fan, I'm a season ticket holder for my football club, and I have a right to have a voice.
It's in our DNA, isn't it, though?
Yeah.
It is. It's something that we've grew up with. Look, I cherish this show with all my heart and soul. I want it to be the best version that it can be. Okay? And all I want is just someone in there that cares and is listening to it. We're not asking for much. We're just asking for the show to go back to basics and be the show that it once was. Well, it will never be what it once was. But if you can come close to that, then you've won. You've already won. And he did achieve that in 2005. So it is possible for him to repeat the same trick a second time. But right now, I have to say he hasn't won me over because his stories for me have not been that engaging. The Giggle was a much better story, and I so wish he had went with that one first, because I think if he didn't do, I know Timescales was excited about Beep the Meat, but I think for Doctor Who fans in general, it wouldn't have been a big loss if Beep the Meat never happened. But I can understand your excitement at Timescales because the comics and stuff like that. But
Well, sorry, Noel, as we start to wrap up here, I want there's one big question left regarding the relaunch or misfire question, and I want to ask everybody here. What do you, in retrospect, I can see what RTD was trying to do, but in retrospect, do you think bringing David Tennant and Catherine Tate back, with all the intentions I know he's got, was a more of a misfire and a missed opportunity that actually, did we need to bring them back? And in retrospect, did it work? Where would you go with that time scales?
Well, what I was just sitting here thinking was the wheelchair representation is very positive thing. I was really happy to see Ruth Madeley's character using a wheelchair. And I am aware of the Davros Gate thing. When when these episodes came back, I saw that as being positive. I saw that as being extremely positive. I had one of my best friends was in a wheelchair for over 30 years. And I was familiar with going around town with him simply and looking for ramps and places where he could easily get in looking for accessibility. And of everything of these specials, I think my favorite thing in the way that Doctor Who has improved and become more inclusive is the wheelchair representation. And I do know that there were a lot of people that were not happy with the Davros Gate issue. And when I first saw that on Twitter, X, I thought someone was making a joke because I never considered Davros to be in a wheelchair. And later in the day, I was at work thinking about that, and I thought, wow, if that was a joke, that's in really poor taste. And I went back later to look and see who was starting this because it didn't seem very kind. And then found out, wait a second, what? This is true? So I was on the fence about the Davros Gate thing because I never considered Davros to be in a wheelchair. So I reached out to a couple of friends of mine that use wheelchairs. One of them is Galen Lee. If you don't know who Galen Lee is, she is an American treasure musician and a Broadway music composer. And she's a Doctor Who fan. And I asked her, she uses a wheelchair, Google her. And she said that she did see Davros as being a wheelchair user. And I was shocked. That's not something I was expecting to learn. And she is a public speaker and a disability rights advocate. So I take her opinion seriously. So that got me off of the fence and leaning more towards agreeing with with Doctor Who being inclusive. So with the three specials, the wheelchair representation was above and by far the number one thing that I liked about any of them, including the Star Beast.
Right. So, I mean, David Tennant.
Can I just say something on that though? It's not the representation of people being in wheelchairs that Doctor Who fans have a problem with. The whole thing with Davros Gate was the fact that some people in wheelchairs didn't like the fact that RTD implied that it said that people in wheelchairs were seen as evil. That's where this all came about. It's not got to do with representation or people being in wheelchairs. It was the fact that he actually came out of his mouth and said that, well, the audience out there might see someone in a wheelchair as evil because Davros was disfigured and he was this, that, and the other. That's why fans reacted. Nobody has a problem with
I see what
anybody in
you're saying.
wheelchairs. I mean, as I said, I brought up Ruth Madley earlier on. She's in years and years. She's in a wheelchair. Did I notice the wheelchair? Absolutely not, because she was such a good actress that I forgot that the wheelchair was there. And this is what a good actress does. But then when he brings her into Doctor Who, then he puts little silly tropes on a wheelchair and kind of like, so on one hand, you're saying people are evil in wheelchairs, but then you go and do this whole ridiculous trope with a wheelchair where it's firing darts and rockets. He's contradicting him. This is why we have it's not the representation that we have a problem with. It's how it's portrayed and how it's put across on screen. And I know you're not saying that, and I get your point from your friend's point of view, but that's where all the Davros Gate situation came from. It came from RTD's own words because of how he perceived. And that's the thing. This is self-projection. He obviously seeing people in wheelchairs as evil grown up, and he's projecting it onto the audience, and that's wrong, because I didn't see people in wheelchairs as evil. I've got people in my family that are in wheelchairs. I've never seen their wheelchairs a hindrance or anything like that. This is projection from RTD, and this is why I go mad. And it might come across as negative, but this is another reason why I don't like when showrunners like this come in with their activism and ideology. Keep it out of Doctor Who. You're there to write Doctor Who. You're paid to write Doctor Who. And you can have all the representation you want in it, but please, by God, do it properly and represent these people properly, and we won't have a problem with it. But when you make stupid quotes like that, then, fans are going to backlash.
Can I just say no? Because I was on your show with Scottish Davros when we talked about Destination Skaro, and we all know what we said then. But what I was interested in is Timescales has done an interview with this lady. What's her name again, Timescales?
It is Galen Lay, Broadway music composer. Her last name is spelled L-E-A. It's actually pronounced Lee, but it looks like it says like Galen Lee. Last name spelled L-E-A.
But if you go to Timescales' YouTube channel, you'll see the interview. And I know what I said on your show, Noel, and that was my belief. When I listened to Timescales' interview, obviously it was somebody else who was wheelchair bound who had a different viewpoint. And it just opened my eyes a bit like it did Timescales. And all I'm saying is, I know what we all said about representation. It's just that there seems to be a few schools of thought on this one. That's all I'm going to say. And it was an interesting show. Please tune in and have a look at Timescales' interview with that, because it does give you a different viewpoint.
Oh, well, but I just wanted to get that out there because I think it is important that we all understand the context here, why there was an actual Davros Gate in the first place. RTD is the one that caused it because he made that stupid, ridiculous statement. And it's just him projecting. And I think it's absolutely wrong. And I've been calling this out. It's wrong. No Doctor Who fan has a problem with representation or inclusion if it's done properly and these people are represented properly and included properly. But we've seen over the last couple of years in particular that BBC and now Disney Plus have this whole charter, as they call it, and they're not representing these people properly. And the thing about it is they have fans in the fandom that will defend them and go after fans that are calling this out and pointing it out. Oh, the reason why I'm pointing it out is because you talk about this other side talk about inclusion and representation. Well, these not wanted done properly, which is not wanted done respectfully. I mean, Chibnall, I just want to bring one final example up and then I'll shut up on this whole thing. But this does rile me up because this is one of the contentious issues I have. with RTD. But Chibnall did something, right? I don't know which Dalek episode it was, right? But there's a character on it, a gay character on Doctor Who, and he's on screen for less than 20 seconds. And he gets exterminated by a Dalek, right? So the whole purpose of Chibnall bringing this character on, right? He was a security guard in the building, was to tell us that his boyfriend was at home or his fiance was at home waiting for him, and then the Dalek shot him. That was his contribution to Doctor Who, right? That is not right, and it must be called out. If you're going to bring a gay character into Doctor Who, well, then you do it like you did with John Barrowman, right? You don't half-ass it. I'm sorry, but this really does annoy me. It needs to be spoken about, because the bottom line is, this is why we have a problem, why we're negative about it. If this was all done properly, we'd be sitting here smiling.
I understand, Noel. I mean, like I said, and I know your point because I've been on your show, and I echo some of it. But obviously, I'll try and conclude our review of this episode, which I suppose all I can say is the representation of a wheelchair-bound character was clearly very positive. And yes, the context is a greater argument, but I suppose that's for another show. John, I did ask the question just briefly about David Tennant and Catherine Tate coming back, whether they were utilised well, it worked, or whether it was a missed opportunity, or whether he should have done it at all.
I think he probably needed to do it, given that the show was in the gutter. So it was probably a prerequisite when they got together around their committee room table and decided, okay, before we lift this thing with a new Doctor, we have to do a reset with an old Doctor and popular companion. Whether or not it will pay dividends, I think it's too early to say. It got viewers back, not in the droves, but it got viewers back. So did it do the job of getting more people interested in Doctor Who than had been interested in it? Towards the tail end of Chibnall, when it hit the nadir of 1 point, whatever it was, million for the Legend of the Sea Devils, God help us. I've seen the Starbeast twice. The mere threat of having to see Legend of the Sea Devils a second time is something that keeps me awake at night. So from that, it's been a success. It's got people back to Doctor Who. The next thing for him is how he handles that success, how he builds upon Doctor Who's increased budget, flashier effects, big starry guest cast names, whatever it is. If he chooses to use Doctor Who as a vehicle for great storytelling and good characterization of Doctor and companion, then I think that there's nothing to stop the show continuing to do well. So the Starbeast, yes, it did its job in terms of bringing people back to Doctor Who. Whether it does that long term, I don't know. That's very much in the hands of Russell Davies.
So, I know, I just think it was a bit of a misfire there. I was looking for, well, I have actually argued that David Tennant has been overused, to be honest, as the Doctor. And there's a lot of other Doctors.
I'd agree with that. Yes, I'd agree with that.
There's Paul McGann and there's various others, but it is what it was. And since that was the opportunity, unfortunately, it meant you had to do the meta crisis again and get bogged down.
I don't think, Brendan, he had much choice of not including David Tennant. I think it would be pointless doing this with Paul McGann. People wouldn't have known who Paul McGann was. As much as we would have loved to have seen him do it, they had to re-establish this as a brand, and it was going to take either David Tennant and Catherine Tate or David Tennant and Billy Piper to do that.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because you know what fans are saying, and I know it can't be fan-led all the time, but we said it's the specials, and you got an old Doctor kind of back, but you didn't get too much more. We were all expecting lots more things, weren't we? And of course, next Tuesday, we'll review The Wild Blue Yonder, another one we didn't do, where there was an awful lot of expectation in that episode because we knew nothing about it. Oh, is Susan coming back? Lots of Doctors coming back. There was an awful lot of speculation about that episode.
Why am I so big?
Because you were talking then, and I forgot because I was taking the captions off. But so that was it. Right, okay, we're there. This is an inspection report, so just remind everybody before we finish, because I'll ask you all for your opinion. Is this episode special measures? In other words, very weak in lots of categories of the criteria we said. Does it require improvement? That means you think in some areas it was all right, it was good, or it was outstanding, but in one respect, either engagement or special effects, direction, music, blah, 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 or in being consistent about the characters, safeguarding, it fell flat in one area. Was it good overall? Was it outstanding? That's what we always judge. I'll remind everybody that last time we did this, Church on Ruby Road was good with some areas of improvement needed, and Giggle was good. And so I'll start off because that's the way my slides are. So basically, I have to say regarding this one, there you go again, John. I am going to say, because I've got to be honest with my own criteria of how I've gone so far with the other episodes, I am giving this requires improvement, because you heard what I said about the safeguarding, you heard what I said about various things there, and the writing, which I agree with John on, the writing was the key thing here. Yes, it had all great effects, and I did like that street scene, but equally overall, I thought it was short on story, and it was short on... I really want Doctor Who to start having some suspenseful moments again. Where are they? It's all either action. Like I said, I don't watch Marvel movies and all the rest of it. That's not me. I want that suspense. I want that moment of jeopardy, and it wasn't there. So it might look harsh, but at the moment I'm saying requires improvement. Now I'm coming to timescales next. So timescales, if you have a little think about how you're going to judge that, and I'll get the your criteria up. So basically, okay, where do you stand on what you will give it?
Well, it requires improvement, definitely. And it comes down to the writing. And I think that the showrunner should be a separate job than the writer. And I believe that there are so many other talents out there that have not been and are not being used, like Eddie Robson, Andy Lane, Paul Mars, Gary Russell. The list just goes on and on and on. And I would like to see someone who has written and proven themselves with beautiful Doctor Who stories, writing for Doctor Who television, instead of having a showrunner who is also the writer of the story. See, that right there, I just don't get. And I can't tell you what the Star Beast was about. And that's pretty bad, because I've seen it at least 4 times. And I'm starting to understand the story by reading the novel. And I bought the novel because I'm a fan of Gary Russell. I like his writing style. But somebody should not have to read a novel of a television episode to be able to understand it. And like I've said before, I have trouble understanding British accents, but I did watch it with subtitles, so that's not the issue. I believe that Doctor Who needs stronger stories, and I believe that the Star Beast is a prime example of that. And I really wish that we had a larger range of writers. And I'm not criticizing the other writers, but I think you guys get what I'm saying here. Yeah. I think that there should be a showrunner, and then I think that there should be a writer. So it requires improvement.
So just before I go to our next person, I'll just very quickly say thank you in the thread. People are saying 6.5 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 7 out of 10. Me and John don't recognize that, because you're either told you're outstanding, you're told you're good, and it goes down the scales. And I'm interested, if you play the game, just like Peter Harrington has, could do better. He's doing old-fashioned school teaching there. But basically, do you think it's a good episode? Do you think it's an outstanding episode? Do you think it requires improvement in an area? And you've heard what 2 of us have said so far. John, where would you go with your assessment?
Yeah. 2 things. Better than what we had, the Star Beast. Mind you, didn't have to do much to be better than what we had. But given everything we've just said, it requires improvement. I think we got that improvement in the 2 episodes that followed it. But yeah, it definitely requires improvement, purely because, and we've gone over this several times now, Doctor Who is not an effects-based program, never has been, never will be. And just because you can throw as many millions of pounds at it as you want, it will not make it better if there's not a story there to be told. The acid test of that would be, instead of making a new season of Doctor Who with Shooty, why don't they just do a remake of all those classics, be it Pyramids of Mars, City of Death, Caves of Androzani, Michelle, I'm thinking of you here, and then do them with an upscale budget, and let's see if that makes a difference for having a really good story enhanced by good effects and all the rest of it. Because good effects and money in and of themselves don't make a good story. So yes, needs improvement.
I'm getting quite surprised at this. This is looking dangerous for this episode review because we've never gone this low before. So, Michelle, where do you stand overall on this episode?
I am agreeing with what everyone says. I'm going to go for needs improvement. There was a lot that I liked about it, but again, the one problem with Modern Who, it does not stick the landing. It's like it's like a gymnast. They take off and they're doing the spins, then they start doing cartwheels and somersaults, and and then they land on their rear end instead of hitting on the pad. So, while the takeoff and delivery is good, they can't stick the ending.
Yeah, well, gosh, I
Well
didn't know
said.
what. You see, this is the beauty of it, Reese. I didn't know what people were going to say with this. I thought I was going to be harsh by saying requires improvement. I thought I was going to have some debate from that. Noel, where do you stand? And I'll get your slide up once you've told us, okay?
Oh no, I'm going to keep this brief because I went on a bit of a rant on the last one. So I agree with the whole panel. Basically, it requires improvement, and we'll leave it there because I think I've made it clear what the issues are. So I'll leave it there for a bit of balance.
I appreciate that because we've all been. I mean, I appreciate the time the panel's given and the people in the margin, as I keep getting told, keep calling it the margin, Brendan. That makes you stand out different. So, oh my God, so we've actually called it as requiring improvement. I really didn't think we'd go there, but that's the truth of it. In other words, out of the 3 episodes this channel has reviewed, we're saying this was the worst out of the 3. The Giggle was the best, we say, followed by Church on Ruby Road, and this was the worst of the 3. And this was the relaunch. So tune in next week. What will we make of Wild Blue Yonder? But I was also advertising, I'll come back to you, John, in a minute. Sunday, 7 p.m., we'll be doing our big magazine show, Doctor Who debate on the cliffhangers. What was your favourite cliffhanger? What's the job of a cliffhanger? Why don't they do them now? That's our big debate because I might say what the best cliffhanger is and somebody picks a completely different era. But that's our item there. We'll look at merchandise reviews, latest Doctor Who news, if there is any. I noticed today Stephen Moffat might be listed for the Doctor Who Christmas episode, and then it was taken down within 2 minutes. So let's see what comes out. So go on, John, you were going to say something.
No, it was just in terms of ending on a positive note that while we're saying, because we're reviewing these stories not in chronological order, we did say the Giggle and Church and Ruby were good. It'll be interesting to see what we say about next week's story. And we've said Star Beast needs improvement. But I got the previous 2 stories prior to this in Doctor Who, the Power of the Doctor and the Legend of the Sea Devils, were in special measures as far as I'm concerned. So that's improvement. The show was improving. So it was in special measures to needs improvement to good. So that's ending, I would think, from my point of view, ending on an element of positivity.
I'd agree with John. There is signs of moving in the right direction. It is better than the last 2. I mean, before we get into those last 2 stories, but yeah, I have problems with Star Beast, massive problems. But I will say this: I watched it all the way through the end. With the other 2, I had to watch them like John was doing with actually the Star Beast. I had to watch the last 2 episodes in parts, even when I was reviewing it on my own channel. I had to watch it over a couple of days. So that's an improvement, that I could actually sit through a whole Doctor Who episode. But I was bored.
No, I agree with John. In the round, from where it was following, I asked the question, was this a misfire or successful relaunch? And that there's a relative success there from where it was. I agree with that. And just before Timescale says, you didn't mention much about subscriptions. Please, if you've stuck with us, like, subscribe, or I'll do the threatening version. Why not? Since we've been talking about beating the meat. Which version do you want? But what I want to say is thank you to the panel. I also don't want to forget one of our great panelists, and I'll just say it one more time. I hope you're all right. I hope to see you again. All the best from us on the Sense Sphere and from the margins there, because we all love your contributions and you're a decent bloke. So all the best there, Hugh, too. It's more important than the program, actually, isn't it? So thanks for your contributions, everybody. We've delivered an indictment on the program to a degree, but then we've had a lovely relative element there from John to explain that in the round it wasn't that bad. So Sunday, tune in for us. Wild Blue Yonder next week at 4 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for your time. And
Thank you, Brendan.
I suppose we better roll the credits.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.